Just imagine that you have landed in a lost position. What would you do? Well, the easiest way is to go back to the comforts of the home. But this will never achieve anything for you in life. What you have to do? Follow great chess players, fight till the last drop, and you can get away with lost positions. So, the art of drawing a lost game can be done through perpetual checks, wherein you will be going on giving checks to your opponent and he will not be in a position to stop it. And another is stalemate. You try some swindle and opponent accepts the bait and you get away with the valuable half a point. So here in this tactic, we will learn the art of drawing a lost game through these two ideas, that is perpetual check and stalemate. Let us examine few examples in this part. So here now what do we see? It's from the game between Unzicker and Everback, and with white enjoying material advantage in terms of an exchange up, we see that white has two rooks as against a rook and knight of black. That means we say white is exchange up. He had pieces in good position, a strong pawn on d5. But here now Everback came up with a beautiful sacrifice to salvage half a point. In this position he played here knight g4. And what is black doing? Threatening a deadly queen h2 check and mate. Since the f file is open, it is not possible for white to go to f1. So this sacrifice needs to be accepted. And now with h file also being open, Everback is able to salvage half a point. He moves his queen to f2 check, king to h1 or king to h2 is means like any possibility. So here in the actual game he tried king to h1 and there followed now checks on this diagonal h4 f2. So queen to h4 check, king to g1, queen to f2, and players agreed for a draw. Let us examine what happens after queen f2 check. What if king goes to h2? Well, the result is same. It again means leads to queen h4, king to g1, queen f2, and again a draw. So this is one way of saving a game. Try to open up the positions and look for perpetual checks. Our next position is also superlative effort by black to draw this game. Here in this position he played a stunning queen f1 check, and now this forces the move king into f1. With this move we see that king is on the same line as the rook on f8. That means now a discovered checks comes from knight captures e3, and at the same time now we see a knight 4. This move knight into e3 also opens up what we say the e file for the rook on e6 to become active. Here we see king e2. But let us first examine what if he likes goes to g1. Of course, it is not possible for white to accept take the knight on e3 because the pawn on f2 is pinned. So what if like king goes to g1? Well, in that case, in fact it would be black who would be winning the game. Knight into d1. He not only recovers the queen, but now the knight is threatening the rook on b2 as well. We see the rook on e6 threatening to win the unprotected bishop on e1. So rook d2 is the move, and in that case rook into e1, it's an easy win for black. That's why in this position we find white playing king e2. And now here, like having sacrificed the queen, okay, king is in the open, but he needs to find perfect calculation from where you should give discovered check. Definitely not by capturing the queen, but by moving the knight to c4. And what do we see here? Now there is a check here, and it means the rook on f5 is also covering here. So king does not have flight square on f3, on e3. He can as well, like no square also on d2. So the squares available are both on d3 as well on f1. And like it is not good for him to play king d3, because now what we see, the knight on c4 is also attacking here. And if this capture comes with a check, then there will also be a knight force. So for example, king d3 is to be avoided at all cost, because in that case black will win the game. Knight captures b2, it's a knight fork, and queen will be lost after king gets out of check. So in this position he has only one move, that is go back to the comfort with king f1. And here now, like the perpetual check continues. We now find again black playing knight e3, king e2, knight c4, king f1, moves are repeated. Third time knight e3, and players agreed for a draw here. Nice way of saving a lost position. No less attractive is the art of saving a game through stalemate. So what you do is like you bring a position where you have no legal move and your king is not in check. And this of course like happens many a times. Even to good players, they lower the guard when winning a game, and they gift away valuable half a point. And that is what I would suggest, that when you are in a winning position, your concentration should be doubled, because this is like a stage where you are most likely to go wrong. You become overconfident. I have seen it with countless of my students. They reach a winning position, are comfortably winning the game, but then they lower their guard, their concentration goes down, they blunder, or like they make such a mistake which allows opponent to escape with a draw. So same thing happened here in this position. It is white to play, and we see that like of the three chessmen of white, the king and pawn on f3 are not in a position to move. Also we see that king does not have a flight square on h2. Let us examine this h2 and g2, because it is controlled by the black rook on c2. He also does not have a flight square on g4, because there is a knight on e5. It means the only safe square available for the king right now is on h4, and of course h3 where it is standing. And now imagine if king does not have h4 square, and if white queen disappears from the board, then white gets half a point, a gift. So that is where the swindle comes in, the drawing idea, the sacrifice of the queen, queen g5 check. And of course it is now forced to accept this queen, because there are no flight square for the black king too. So after king into g5, what do we find? That the h4 square is no longer available to white. Now we see only two chessmen for white, both not in a position to move, and of course the white king is not in check, so it is stalemate. The game ended in a draw, a happy face for white, whereas we saw black like crying. Going ahead to our concluding positions, rather we have two, not concluding, the stalemate ideas. So here now we see in this position it is black who is winning the game. He has got one extra pawn and deadly threat. How can this threat be parried? It is rook a1, check and mate, and of course nothing for this rook to do, rook on h8. But there is a nice way of saving this game. Imagine if the rook on h8 is not there, disappears from the board, and even the pawn on h7 disappears from the board, then we say it's stalemate, because here the white king on f1 does not have a flight square. So there comes the idea, with two successive sacrifices, white makes both of them disappear from the board. First one is rook a8, and now what is this move doing? Of course, it's like threatening. First of all, it has prevented any sort of checkmate coming from a1 square. Now it is also threatening h8, promote it to a queen, and then white will win the game. That means black is required to accept this sacrifice. Again, he goes a rook up. Again, the same threat is renewed. Rook h1 equals check and mate. But now what does white do? He promotes this to a queen, and thereby, like again a change in balance, material up for white, and also controlling the a1 square from where checkmate is going to be delivered by black. So again, this forces acceptance of this second sacrifice too, and after rook into h8, we find that white king has no flight square, his king is not in check, and the game ended in a stalemate. Though black has material in terms of 7 points, he has 5 points for a rook plus 2 pawns, but all that material count become meaningless when stalemate is there on the board. We conclude our learning through one more example, wherein like in this position, black junks all its movable properties to land in a stalemate. If we can examine this, the king on h5 has got a flight square on h4, but no flight square on g6, and that is where the idea comes, like if he is able to sacrifice his queen and pawn, and if like this h4 can voluntarily be closed, then it's a stalemate. So it started with g3 check, wonderful, and now this sacrifice has to be accepted, for example, because otherwise if king h1, there follows in this position queen to e1, check and mate. So this forces queen into g3, and now with queen on g3, we find that h4 is now no longer available to black, nor g6, g5 and g4. It means if the black queen disappears from the board, then it is stalemate, and that is where the idea comes, not difficult to guess. Queen g1 check forces king into g1. All movable properties have disappeared for black. His king and pawn both are not in a position to move, and though white is enjoying an overwhelming material advantage in terms of a queen and 3 points, he only gets half a point, not a full point. So friends, with this we conclude our learning of the examples in draw by repetition and stalemate, and I will come back with the solutions on this part of tactic. Till then, bye.